So I was struggling, to be fair, in the British education system at the time, and this was way back in maybe about 2006, to just find Black people who were in the mathematics field, who could be examples for my students that I was working with at the time, in one of the schools which I will mention later on in this presentation. And so I just went online and I just kept searching, and eventually Dr. Chamberlain's name came up as a person who was offering himself to be able to do speeches in schools and so on. It so happened that I changed that school. We kind of lost contact. We had maintained a Facebook contact. And then sporadically over the years, we continued to connect. And then now we have maybe properly joined as professionals, but still haven't yet met in person. So I really wanted to tell that story because it's just that quest to find similar people of examples for us, for our students, our Black children in UK, to get them to see that mathematics is something that they can aspire to. We really struggle to find those people that are available and willing to talk. So if you're anybody who has a talent, please keep yourself available. You are a gem that will be helpful for many, many kids. So as I said, if you want to join on Menti, it says 79243982. It's just menti.com. See, 13 people have joined, and I hope that we can get more people joining through to get some thoughts and some ideas through. As I said, that one person left. So I currently am a head of middle school in, surprisingly, an American school. So the question is, how does a Jamaican leave Jamaica, came to the UK, working in the UK educational system for over 20 years, and now I'm a head of a section, essentially a principal, in an American curriculum school. So I'll tell a little bit about how you navigate that kind of space, and then ask some questions, and then hopefully my talk will inspire people to understand that these journeys are maybe not unique, but they do have some patterns that we can maybe jump into. All right, so let me get going. So I need to just navigate myself to the right page, and I've lost it. Have I lost it? Oh, wait, am I sharing? I'm on the right page, right? Let me see. Okay, great. I'm on the right page. So if you have used Menti before, I just want to check that people know to check in just to see how it works, so we can get a feel of what's going on. Normally, I just want to test that the car can drive. And literally what you're doing now is how we'll interact on some of the slides as we get through. So if you feel left out right now, you need to get your devices going. You need to make sure that you're ready to join and participate and add some thoughts into the question. At the moment, I have 10. I know that I've seen a lot more people in the room. So it would be really good if you could find a way to interact. You can join from a device. And if you're on a shared device, it's a little bit trickier. All right, so you have, some people have and some people haven't. The good thing is this is a way that you can get some interaction going in any of your presentations. It's really, really wonderful. So my first question to everyone is, what comes to mind when you think of mathematics? So you just need to type your words and then we'll see what happens. Pleasure, exploration. What comes to mind when you think of mathematics? And when Dr. Chamberlain, you maybe can grab this afterwards. Wonderful world. Patience. Patience and pleasure. Fantastic, fantastic. Some fantastic words coming up, but fun, for some reason, is staying in the center. Wow. Fun. Someone put boring. I'm hoping that gets receded into the background, right? Patience. I like patience. Intimidating is interesting. So what comes to mind when you think of mathematics? And look at the array, the range of words that we're seeing here about a subject which I hold to be one of the most beautiful subjects that exists. It is a language. I say mathematics is a language. And in every language, you have patterns, you have all of these things. But mathematics, look at it. Look at what people are saying. And I can imagine the person who put victory knows exactly what that means. When I was studying mathematics, I remembered spending hours and hours trying to find a way into a problem, and it's happening while I'm doing the dishes. And then the idea comes, and I stop doing the dishes, and everyone's wondering why I'm trying to write paper with my hands wet, because the idea came. Something happened with the sounds, or while my brain is in a deeper state, it happens. And that's victory. And that's the power of mathematics. So we're getting some good, a nice word cloud here that might be something that we can use, but some wonderful words I can quickly go around. Joy, like joy, love joy. Someone says hard, but there's beauty, there's equations, there's wonderful world. So these are some of the words that come to mind. And there are people, when they hear about mathematics, boring comes to mind, and intimidating comes to mind, and hard comes to mind. And that's something that as math teachers, we have a challenge as time to do, something to work through. But that's a really, really thankful for all of the inputs here on this, because it does give us a nice feel of where the feeling is on this. So my background is really an interesting one, right? I'm coming through education, and my contribution here is going to be through that lens in terms of a person who has been in education, but also an outsider that has come into the UK. There are a number of pieces to this puzzle, and one of them is literally an immigrant who was never intending to stay here for more than a year, who ended up living in this country, having a family in this country, and having a career in a system that I came to just either look at and then go back home. And so there's a backdrop to that in terms of how do I end up in this kind of a first world country that had this massive problem, right? Now, this is 2022, and many people will see this and go, this is news. UK has a massive shortage in teachers. But the reality of it is that this is not a new story for mathematics. This is not a new story for the UK. And my background will share a little bit about when I started, what was in the news. I have another question for you. What inspired you to become involved in mathematics? I just want to know, like, whether it's a person or a thing or something. So what inspired you? And you can maybe select more than one thing, but what inspired you? Because, as you teach students and as you are engaging with people, we don't know what is the trigger that turns someone into doing their math, want to do math, enjoy math learning. We don't know. But what we do know is that there are things that we do that can turn people off the subject as well. And I just saw a little bit about Dr. Joseph's presentation talking about Black girls. And there are some triggers that make them think, I can't do math. It's not my thing. We're seeing inspirational teacher, right? Or a family member. Look at that. These are two powerful forces that are around children every single day. Inspirational teacher, a teacher that made you had a different view about yourself and what you're capable of, even believing in you more than you believed in yourself. Family members who are role models, who might be in mathematical fields, and you're seeing them and you're thinking, wow, I want to be just like that. And we sometimes find out our aptitude later because someone tapped into that. But there is a fascination with number, and then there's a career expectation. Look at that. Friend. No one had a friend who made them. And that's interesting. That friend did not come up as an option here. But it doesn't mean anything in a sample. You know what I mean? It's just that at the end, on this sample group here, friends did not do this. It was people like family member, inspirational teachers, and so on. So I asked that question simply because that kind of beginning in math is an important part of understanding the mathematical journey of students as we begin to engage with them. So Richard Sunak wants to keep everyone in education until 18. The big problem is still that a shortage of teachers in 2023. But here's one problem that we face in mathematics education. A graduate with a good math degree will start with a 48,000 package to 120,000 per annum. A school teacher begins at 30,000 in English schools. It's a big decision. It has to be a passion for someone to make that decision after years of university study. Now, many countries are resolving this issue very simply. We hear people talk about the Finnish system. One thing people speak about is the outcome, but they do not see the inputs that go into those systems. For example, a key policy in the Finnish system is the starting salary for teachers is quite high. So the range of earning while being a teacher in Finland is not high, but the starting salary is. And so what it does, it removes one barrier to entry for the smartest, brightest, most inspirational, most successful people to be part of that. And this is a big policy question for the UK in terms of getting just people in. Because if you're not getting people in, then how are you going to get your Black teachers in as well? So you need to look at that in terms of how, so that's something that I saw in the news and I'm sharing that. So in my time, I came here in 2002. If you look at my screen, there's a screenshot from the BBC in 2002 in January. I came here in August. And that's the context in which I came to the UK. The UK had a number of Black students in school. They did not have a population of Black teachers in those classrooms, and they were looking for solutions. Now, the solution is always within, and normally based on the structures and the institutions that we perpetuate. But in that time, the UK felt we needed to look outward. The problem must be outward. At that time, Black kids were actually called Afro-Caribbean, which in one sense indicated that they were either from Africa or from the Caribbean, but not necessarily from here. And so the solution meant look either to the Caribbean or look to Africa. So I was recruited in the backdrop of this. The British system felt that the best way to address this issue is to put a Black face in front of the kids. This is the way that it was interpreted. And there was this kind of monolithic view that a Black teacher is going to be, as long as you put a Black teacher in front of a group of Black boys, they will automatically connect with you and love you and have a role model to connect with. That kind of monolithic view was interwoven into UK public educational policy in that time. And so there were numerous trips taken to the Caribbean, people trying to watch Black kids in the Caribbean and then bring back what they were learning and then bring in a lot of Black teachers in. So I came in August. And despite all of this, where I was maybe a gem that they found, I literally had to figure out my way from landing at Heathrow, buying my own ticket and finding my way, getting a place to live and finding my way to the school. No one greeted me. No one was there to tell me how to settle into the UK. I literally had to figure this out. And luckily I had a friend who made sure that some of this was done for me. And so even in accepting that this was an issue, there was not even a red carpet laid out for people to come. So people were just coming into a country and just having to figure it out, which is one of the issues that you will find, as you look at the experiences of Black educators when they came in that time. So in 2002, this was a big issue in the UK, and I was recruited to come and join. So I'll do a little bit about me simply because I'm here and I'm here to present and talk a little bit about me. I'm hoping that I can do a little bit more, but my intention was to give you an idea of my journey while I came to the UK so people can understand what I experienced working in the system as an educator. So I was trained as a teacher in Jamaica. It surprised me when I see that in 1994, I graduated from Teachers College as a teacher. So that puts me somewhere like 29 years in the classroom, a career I had no intention of being in. In fact, I am a teacher simply because I failed high school. That's the reality. If I was successful in high school, I would not have taken the pathway of a teacher. I would have gone on to do something in medicine or something else. But because I did not do very well in high school, I ended up choosing a pathway that was accessible to me. And in one sense, that's the way how our system was set up. If you were very bright, did very well, teaching was not the career. It was just not what you would do. And so I ended up trained as a teacher because I ended up out of high school without certain qualifications and said, you know what, I'll do teaching. And so I ended up there with an intention of just doing it to fill the time. 29 years later, many countries worked in and many lives impacted. I'm here. I did my degree. I did my first level of education in Jamaica at the University of the West Indies. I did a degree in mathematics and economics. So even to go and do teaching with that is not a move that anybody made in that time. It was maybe me just saying, I'll stick to teaching because I'd started my career in teaching already. I ended up doing educational leadership doctorate a few years ago with in Wilkes in the University in Pennsylvania. And at the time, I had even moved out of mathematics and moved into just looking at leadership. I was more interested in what leadership looked like. At the moment, I'm the head of a middle school, which I mentioned. Prior to this, I was working in Oman for 10 years, where I was principal for a middle school as well. And these are working in spaces which are effectively international schools, where the 90% of the staff is UK, US, Caucasian staff. And I'm in these leadership roles working with these teams and trying to figure out how do you navigate these spaces. And then coming back to UK in a similar environment. I've done all the qualifications needed just to get myself ready. And the point is, it's one of the challenges of being a person of color in these spaces. You need to be super qualified. In one sense, you know, there are times you feel like an imposter, but my view on life is that I love being an imposter. And any day I don't feel like I'm an imposter, I'm not challenging myself enough. So I sit in these spaces and I feel like, why am I doing here? And that's what I seek most times. So the journey began. I arrived in Birmingham, as I mentioned. And as I mentioned, I arrived in Birmingham in 2002. It was fall. Britain is fantastic in the fall. I'm thinking it was summer. I think it's beautiful. And then obviously it gets cold and all that. I got to a school called College High. And at College High was actually ranked third from the bottom. Those were the days when you had league tables. So it was ranked third from the bottom, which meant it was easy for people like me to get a job in a school like that. They literally could not recruit, and they were searching all over the world. And in fact, I was recruited by an interview on a mobile phone. Someone called me, answered the phone, and then I did an interview then. Ranked third from the bottom, but eventually I got there. I worked for a number of years and I left there as a second in department. One of the things that was interesting about College High, there's a large number of kids, Black kids from the Aston area, Aston Handsworth area. It wasn't one of those schools that they would send kids out there. There's a large concentration of kids there. Now, to go back to that, that monolithic view of a Black person being the person to put in front of kids. And no one on this, I don't think that was thought through properly. By the time I stepped into that classroom, it was unbelievably the most challenging job I've ever done in my life. The first thing I realized quickly, because that was what I was told, but what I realized very, very quickly, those Black kids, even though I was a Black person, did not see me as a role model for them. They literally did not see me. And that was a rude awakening for me, because obviously in my recruitment, that was a message that I was given, that we need Black role models, we need Black people, and we need Black men as well to work with these boys. And when you land, it's going to be flowers and garlands, and they'll be so happy to have a Black person. That simply did not happen. And for about 3 years, I struggled to understand why would they not see me as one of them, even though their grandparents were Jamaicans for the most part. They just did not connect with me. And it took a while. I had to literally stop expecting that and being a lot more aware of who they were as a person and acknowledge that this was not what was supposed to happen, for me to be eventually form the connections in my last or so year with them, where that did not become a problem later on. But that took a while for that, I'd say, indoctrination to come out of my head, because I walked in expecting them to just like me, love me, and that did not happen. And so that was one real issue that I believe we have with the education system and the people, with the stakeholders. You have people who are writing policy, but they don't understand how that is impacting the people at the other end. And so they're writing through maybe even research that's written by people who don't have that lived experience. And so that's one of the challenges that I've found. Even now, trying to find research where kids and people are asked questions about what that's like, that does not exist. Because at that time, people are going to Jamaica and to Africa to get research to explain their British context. And so they were applying those things. Whereas I was a role model in Jamaica, I was not one in the UK for those kids. And that was a rude awakening for me. I made progress through the system. And one of the things is that I came from a country where everybody was Black, my leader was Black, everyone was Black. So I never felt like I needed to prove anything to anyone. I did not need a white person's approval to do my job. I already knew within myself that I was capable, and I never needed it from start, and now I was able to function in those spaces. So to be fair, I did manage to navigate most of the leadership spaces without having to have that conversation, because I just represented a person who understood that leadership was this. And so over time, people began to see me for who I was. And so while I navigated some racial tensions, it never dominated my interactions because I was one step ahead in some ways. And I'm going to admit as well that I might have been naive at the time to some of the microaggressions that were being thrown my way. Because I've learned a lot more now, I'm able now to see these things much more than I was able to see them then. And in some ways, it was an advantage then, and now being able to see them with a lot more knowledge and understanding about who I am now is also an advantage now. But at that time, I was able to navigate. And I remember now when I look back, I can remember some exchanges. I go, I didn't pick that up. But now I do. Now I'm much more sharper, I'm more aware of that, and may be able to navigate that without creating any more issue, but allowing people to recognize when they're doing it. I did a number of roles in the UK. And one of the toughest job I got, and again, you have to get the toughest jobs. I was appointed head of department in a school in the UK. And it was, again, a school where the pass rate was 18%, meaning 1 in 5 students passed the math course after 5 years of study. And I was appointed head of math, and what do I do? Over time, we built a program. And by the time I left that school, it moved from 1 in 5 to 1 in 2. Which was a massive change. Now, I thought this was amazing work. I'm building up a leadership profile. I'm moving into leadership. This is going to be easy. I have the track record. I have the systems. I have the people supporting me. And so I thought that very easily, I'm going to walk into leadership because I have the profile. Now, I share a statistic here, and this statistic is one that is now, and it was reverse then. These statistics show the percentage of head teachers by ethnicity in the UK. Just the percentage of head teachers by ethnicity in the UK. I want to have a look at the areas that it says like Black African, Black Caribbean, Black other. So while I'm going, great, I'm going to be a head teacher, I wasn't aware what the numbers and the statistics was at that time. And I can tell you, this is 2021. At that time, it was even worse. If you look in 2021, 0.7, not even a percent. Yeah. And if we added up 0.1% here, and if we search down here, it's about 1.6, 1.7, 1.4% of our head teachers in the UK are Black. So if you walk into schools across the UK, 1.4. That is a statistic that tells anyone, when they say 1 in a million, that is literally what the odds are to see a Black person in a leadership role in a school in the UK. So in my naivety, I'm thinking, I'm fighting the battle. I'll be there. This statistic, I did not know. I didn't even know that I was up against that. But that's what's happening there. And you can see, even there, women outnumbered men, almost 3-to-1 in leadership roles, which is an interesting statistic here. Teaching is largely dominated by women. But that statistic doesn't reflect itself when you look at the white male leadership, even though teaching is dominated by women. That statistic is reversed. Yeah, a lot of men get into leadership roles. So there's something there that researchers can start to look at. I was certainly fascinated by that. But that was the context in which I was looking to advance myself. So here, another piece of statistics, 92.5% of it teachers, which is what I pointed out, and most of the second tier leadership cadre is Caucasian. Yeah, they're all Caucasian. So what might be some of the barriers to Black teachers progressing into head teacher leadership roles? I'm asking for your thoughts. What might be some of the barriers to Black teachers progressing into leadership roles or head teacher roles? What might be some of the barriers? I want to get some thoughts from you. What might be some of the barriers to Black teachers progressing into these leadership roles? Nothing? Networks. Oh, bias of, whoa. Network, lack of networking barriers. That's interesting. Because if your name isn't on the list, then you don't get a connection at all in the first place. Sponsor, same idea, isn't it? Low representation. Wow, lack of confidence. I'm going to come back to lack of confidence and low expectations. I was reading a piece of research just before I came back to the UK, and it says it was about why elite international schools suffer from a problem of lack of representation. I think that was the heading. And the researcher was talking to heads of school to understand why they don't have, people of color, Black people in leadership roles. Now, I'll take what they've said. I'm sharing what they have said. One of the things that they said first was people weren't applying. So in the first place, and it's an easy one for us. And one of the things I hope people walk away from this is we see jobs, we look at the school profile and go, they'll never take me. And maybe you're right. But the first part of it is that if you don't apply or no one applies, it's an easy answer as well, right? People go, well, none of the candidates are of color. But that was one piece of a paper that was written that had me thinking a lot, and it did affect my decision to apply for the school that I was coming into. And in a sense, I had a look and I went, you know what? I'm just going to apply and see what happens. And it turned out that I was quite likely one of the strongest candidates that applied for the role. And so one of the things that we have to be doing in saying to ourselves is that we do not self-select. One of the things we have to do, that lack of confidence that you talked about, the systematic racism is present, the institutional racism is present, there's bias, all that exists. But we also have to be mindful that the expectation is that our action is to step away as well. We have to challenge those spaces by saying, you know what? I want to be in those spaces. I can. Imposter syndrome, certainly. But imposter syndrome tends to come after we get the job. But the lack of network, not even knowing. Some people take the phone up and call someone and say, hey, I have a job. How many of us have a job, even in our senior roles, and call another one and say, hey, there's a job at my school or my workplace. You can join this job. So as you can see again, these are some of the barriers that people are highlighting. Thank you again for your, just the thoughts that you're sharing here. It's really some powerful pieces that you're sharing. Some of the things that I had kind of put together as a summary in terms of what you have put, and here's what I kind of found through the data out there. Lack of representation in leadership positions puts us at a real disadvantage. If we are not there, then it's a weird one, but we need to get ourselves there. So even other people can see us and say, when I see someone like, for example, Dr. Chamberlain and the work that he's doing, and he's president of the Institute of Mathematics and Application, then he's president of the Mathematical Association. I look and I say, because previously I would have thought that's not a post that I can get myself into. But seeing him there makes me realize that he's put himself forward, he's presented a case, and it's his time. We have to make sure that we are not self-selected. That's my view personally, that we don't select what jobs we're good enough for, or select jobs because we think we might get it or not get it. We go for it because it's the right job for us. And we get into those spaces. Implicit bias in the hiring process, I know this. That's why a lot of people have moved into taking pictures of resumes, because people are making decisions by simply looking at people and deciding, or looking at names and making decisions. Limited access to professional development or opportunities, certainly. You get in a job, you're not given the best career development opportunities, not given the support for career advancement, and someone mentioned unequal access to networking and mentoring. So again, this is the same kind of ideas that you're sharing, and these are the points that I'm picking up as we, in terms of what I'm looking at, coming back through the research, some of the challenges that people are facing. Can we affect this space? I did ask some teachers, what are your thoughts? In what ways are Black teachers impacting the British space? And what some people pointed about, one of them is this example here, where someone said, you know, we bring specific strengths and life experiences, you know, that we challenge the institutional norms. And Black children do benefit from seeing Black adults in education as adults of influence and success. So we can't shy away from that responsibility. This is from the research that was published in 2020. Teachers' perception of them. This comes even back to what Dr. Joseph was talking about. People have preconceived views of what Black students can achieve. And so that in itself creates a ceiling effect in terms of, John Hattie talks about the idea of collective efficacy, which is the belief within a group that they can make people do better, do well. And we need that kind of collective efficacy, not only for the favored, but for all our students in our school, Black students in particular, who are facing a lot of issues. So I navigated the system, and I think to close my talk, I want to share a few points about how I personally have found a way to navigate the system. Now, we have navigated the system, and when you're navigating, you do need a GPS system. You don't go out without some form of GPS. Otherwise, you get lost, or you don't even know, you don't even have a target. So my GPS, which I'm going to share as I take this to the end, is G, represent the goals that I set for myself. What aspirations are driving your journey towards success? That's a question I would say you can ask yourself. What aspirations are driving your journey towards success? People, that's a network piece that people are talking about. You do need a network. You need to think about the people who form your support network. They say, show me your 5 friends, and that tells a little bit about what your maximum is going to be. And you need a strategy. What approaches do you employ to reach your goals? These are questions that I'd say people need to ask themselves as we navigate this space, because it's really a complex space that requires a certain skill set and a certain mindset. And, workshops like these give you an opportunity to share and have ideas about, but my GPS is goals, people, strategy. When I talk about goals, I mean, remember, setting clear and meaningful goals provide you with the direction and purpose you need to move forward in your journey. Your goals are the guiding stars that illuminate your path to success. Now, I met a friend back in Kuwait, Dr. Joseph Williams, and he shared an idea that we need to stop setting what we call resolutions. He talked about something called a vision board. And it's something to think about, a vision board as you think about goals. How do you see yourself in a point in time? And it's not one thing, it's maybe 6 different things in 6 different areas. And a vision board gives you different times to achieve success and in your pathway. So I set one up in 2019, and it took me about 3 years to achieve that vision. And now I'm thinking I should have shown you that one. But you need to set some goals. You need to set some goals about where you want to be in a few years' time. People, this is a powerful piece. I see a number of pieces that mention networks. This is really one of the most important decisions you can make, connecting with people. You really need to cultivate meaningful relationships. Seek out mentors. Do not be shy to ask someone to mentor you. Someone put the word sponsor. You need people, and sometimes you have to reach out and say, hey, I need your help. It is a source of strength in every step you take. And the last one is a strategy. You do need a strategy. This is a complex space. If you don't have ways in which you're going to get things done. A friend of mine, again, and I learned so much from people, he was a CEO for a company, and we used to have chats. And he one day said to me, I said, what is the secret? How do you function? And he said, it's in my name. He said, I'm a chief executive officer. He said, my role is to execute. I have to execute. And he said, the key is execute, execute, execute. If you're in a job, focus on execution, getting it done. Focus on getting it done. And for you to get something done, you need a strategy. And for me, that's a big takeaway, because now when I look at projects and people are not joining or people are not falling in line, I'm focusing on how do I execute that process and worry less about having people on board, because most times, people are going to be naysayers anyway. So you do need a plan that you can adapt and learn from and include your experiences as you move towards your destination. The power of a strategy is so important, and you need to find a strategy that works for you. I'm currently writing my book. Our book is due to come out with a couple of friends. It's called Critical Issues and Global Trends in International Education. I'm currently in international education. There's really no book that is looking at this. This is a massive book that's coming out for you. Just want to plug that here. And that book will be a powerful book in terms of the space in international education. So as I come to the end, because I know that I'm running towards a point where time is going to be of essence, and I know that people's time are valuable. My question to you, as I've shared with you now, what are your key takeaways from today's presentation? And how do you think the insights shared can be applied to your own journey or experiences? I'll give you a minute to think about that. And then I'd love to hear your thoughts on that and on this. That's a powerful one. Don't self-select yourself. Out. Don't do that. Apply. Go for it. I'm hoping we get some more thoughts, but maybe everyone's agreeing with that. What are your key takeaways from today's presentation or any insights that you have? Don't blacklist yourself. Confidence, resilience, persistence, and determination. Execute. GPS, seek out mentors. I haven't said that, but I live here with my wife and family. We're loving it here in the UK. As I said, I came here for 1 year. I literally came here for 1 year. And in my first 2 months, I came here for 2 months. I literally was on a plane going back home. And the only reason why I didn't go back home was because I would have been too embarrassed to admit failure, to walk back and just went. I came and it didn't work. And thank God I didn't. But the reality of it is, it was a tough insertion into the British system, a rude awakening of the challenges that those students faced. I mean, now I found a way. I have done a lot of work working with British kids and a lot of charities trying to be a person working with them. But the end result is that, we need a lot more people going out there, doing a lot more. I mean, this week I'm meeting with the National Governors, Black Governors Association to do my part, to become part of that. Because if you're not in the room where it happens, and when people like us are in the room where it happens, we can provide a frame, a lens to allow people to see things in a different way. So we need to be in that room where it happens, and we need to be also not only succeeding for ourselves, but seeing ourselves as offering service to others. So thank you. There are a lot of great points here. Learn from your experiences to reach your destination. Never give up on your dream. Be bold and engage more with platforms like this. Set a strategy. As I said, execute, execute, execute. That's my key point here. Execute, execute. So thank you. And I think I've reached the end of my presentation. So thank you so much for being and hanging in with me.